Maybe if I put Endless Hunger mixed with Apocalypse and get rid of Wasteland, maybe then will Apex be good? Welcome back, friends, to another exciting day of Let's Watch Some Netrunner. Yes, Netrunner, the wonderful, beautiful game that everyone should be playing, but everyone isn't. Well, maybe we should just be happy all the little chillins aren't running around teabagging us in our own little tiny community. How would you teabag someone in Netrunner? Actually, I take that back. Every time the corp reses an uncontested Rashida, it's a teabag. Anyway, you didn't come here to see me babble on. Let's get to watching some games. Whoops. Great. Well, I should have rethought that. Hang on, one moment. Apparently, oh gosh. Yeah, alright. Wasn't thinking about that one. The same hotkey I used to turn off my webcam also happened to be the hotkey that closes Windows. Chrome windows. Oh, come on! What? Which one joined the game here, man? Alright, first game of the day, Geist Criminal versus... what is this Jinteki Biotech? We just went into why this idea is bad last episode. Well, whatever. Geist Crim versus Jinteki Biotech. Which of the three biotechs it is actually quite telegraphed, depending on the moves that the player is playing. That is loud. Let's get that at the appropriate volume. Alright, so we see a draw double ice from Jinteki Biotech. Geist is going to draw, probably looking for those tech traders. And he double installs, after another draw, 2 technical writers. So he has his money, his future money set up in the form of those tech writers. Unfortunately, it's not going to help him out now. We see a hedge fund draw Beanstalk, a slight error in the part of Jinteki Biotech. He should have drawn first, but in the end, it didn't truly matter. We see another double draw from Geist, throwing down his first tech trader, followed up by a simul chip. Not sure if the simul chip is going to help him now. I don't know if he just didn't have anything better to play and was just trying to get something out of his hand. Although it is going to drop him down to 3 credits, although Geist doesn't need too many credits to do what he wants to do. We see a hedge fund out of Biotech, followed up on the last click by that, I always forget the name, preemptive action. Going to shuffle all of their cards back into hand, which is going to include the archive memories, the hedge fund, and Beanstalk royalties. Street Peddler coming out of Geist. It's certainly going to give him the options he needs to get another trash can ability fire, as well as install something at a discount, getting that credit back from Tech Trader. He's probably deciding now what he wants. Sometimes Street Peddler can be a tough choice, especially if you get screwed over, such as that you have 2 very good cards that you need to install. Now, he did have the choice between the Prognostic Q-Loop and the Grappling Hook. Probably came down to the Grappling Hook and the Spy Cam. Oddly enough, I think the Spy Cam was probably the right call, because he can pop that for free at will. He's going to install a second tech trader. Yeah, definitely, the Spy Cam's now going to get him 2 credits in the draw. Very nice. Another simul chip drops on the table. It's interesting that he's just installing all of these simul chips. It makes me wonder what's in his hand. Because you'd much rather be installing, you know, I don't know, like, well, you probably don't want to throw out your breakers this early, but you would hope you have your console at this point. Install double advance from Jinteki Biotech, who says, come on in, it's a naked remote, I dare you to run this. Could be something like a Cerebral Overrider, could be something as harmless as an NGO front, could be an agenda. Of course, there's no real way to tell unless you want to gear up and run. Goes back to Geist, and he's taking his turn, taking his time, deciding what he wants to do here. Now, those technical writers do have 3 credits each, so it would be respectable to go ahead and use one to gain 5 credits, including the tech trader money, in addition to a draw, if he should choose. However, he decides to just go ahead and run the naked remote with 4 credits in hand, 3 cards. If this was a June bug, he's dead. It's probably not a June bug, though. Very few people... Well, it is a Cerebral Overrider! Oh, no! Oh, no! He lost to Mina and Croner! Well, that's not the end of the world. He has the 2 simul chips, so he'll be able to... He'll be able to pull those out of the bin. But yikes! Okay, so he's playing with a hand size of 3 now. Ha! Biotech is very happy to see that. The sneaky Cerebral Overrider. I mean, you know, you always have to worry that it could be something weird, but it's not like Jinteki Biotech is specifically known for running Overrider. So I guess those double simul chips will definitely pull Geist out of the fire now that he's lost 2 of his 3 main breakers. This guy's deck is only going to be running 1 of each, the third one being Begalter. That would explain why he was holding so many cards in hand and installing the simul chips, because he didn't want to install the breakers. That wouldn't really be useful. Not that he even had the money for Amina. So we see 1 more piece of ice each on HQ and R&D from Biotech. Now, strangely, Geist on the previous turn boomeranged the HQ ice, which I've told you 1,000 times why I don't agree with that choice in any way. In fact, I kind of wish the Biotech player had just overwritten that boomerang piece of ice. However, we'll see if they want to use it. I don't know, maybe it's something crazy like, what is it? A Anansi? So if you boomerang an Anansi, it's still gonna fire its deal 3 net damage on encounter ability, or like on encounter end ability. It's a weird trigger. Alright, we see a spy cam dropped by Geist. He had previously used his other 2 spy cams. Oh, it was just the one? Sorry. His previous spy cam. I think he did that when he ran into the Cerebral Overrider. No, he used it before making the run on the Cerebral Overrider remote. Okay, so it looks like Geist is suffering from that -2 hand size. He had to go ahead and throw away his political operative. It's an interesting include in this deck. I feel like we've seen all sorts of minor variants of the OK Boomerang deck. This is certainly a variant of it. One of the variants we saw used falsified credentials. This variant seems to run political operative. Of course, that's going to let you trash... Oh, it's just any res card. I thought it was assets only. So it's going to let you trash upgrades and assets that are in a remote. But this Biotech player doesn't really seem like he's doing any kind of remote play, so... If I had to guess... So the question is, what is this Biotech player running? Like, what is his actual ID? And I think at this point, we can cross off the fast advance. Of course, there's the 3 sides of the ID. You have the fast advance, flip this ID, put 4 agenda counters on a card, or advancement counters. There's flip this card, do 2 net damage, which can't technically be off the table yet. Considering that he went for that Cerebral Overrider brain damage, he might be trying to whittle this Geist down to the point where he only has 2 cards in hand. Now that's... or 1 card in hand. Now that's going to be really, really hard to do against Geist. Because Geist is going to have that instant draw almost anytime he wants it. It could also be the shuffle all of your archives back into R&D. We did see the very early preemptive action, so I don't know. Maybe that's what this deck wants to do. Maybe this deck wants to play traps, and just shuffle everything back into R&D. He hasn't created a remote, which is grounds to think that it is actually the shuffle 2 cards back into R&D thing. Or 2 cards. Shuffle all cards from archives back into R&D. You see, he keeps naked installing and advancing cards, but he's never putting any ice in front of them, which kind of signifies that all he wants to do is protect the centrals, because if the shuffle all archives cards into R&D strategy tends to need to just super ice up the centrals, especially HQ, because you're just you're building up non-stop agendas in HQ. Now, the real problem with biotech is they're poor. They're very poor right now. Now, Mind Game was flipped. Of course, that's going to be res for free, and that was in response to a Stargate run from Geist on click 3. No, I'm sorry. Click 1. What am I saying? I read 3 clicks left. Sorry. So click 1, Geist goes ahead with the Stargate run. Now, Mind Game, of course, free to res, but the players play a Mind Game. If the players pay the same amount, then the run continues and nothing is changed. If the runner pays a different amount from the corp, then he gets bounced to a server of the corp's choosing. They play a Mind Game, they both bet 1, and Geist continues on. Now we see a lockdown, and this is a funny card. The runner cannot draw cards for the remainder of this turn, which is actually pretty relevant against Geist. Now, the nice thing about Lockdown is it's also 0 to res and 5 to break. So it's practically free for the corp to use, and then the runner cannot draw cards anymore. It's very expensive to break, which means that anytime Geist uses a trash can ability now, he's not going to get that draw. Now, this does only last until the remainder of his turn, so once his turn ends and goes back to the corp turn, he does get that card draw back, so it's not as big of a deal. But it does mean that Geist is going to be able to go through and get to see 3 cards off the top of R&D. He sees Philotic Entanglement, Mushin Noshin, and Snare. He goes ahead and trashes the Philotic Entanglement. I don't know if that's a good call, because we know this biotech player runs preemptive action. And sorry, what I meant was he immediately, instead of going into the archives run, he immediately diversion of funds here into HQ, runs into another lockdown. It's pointless. The corp shouldn't have rezzed it. He also rezzes the Odoroshi, which again was boomeranged. That's a really, I would call that a huge misplay on the part of biotech. Biotech gained nothing other than giving Geist more information by revealing the lockdown, and then res the Odoroshi, which at that point just gave Geist 2 credits. Now, I will say it didn't get him a card draw, but allows him to shuffle Boomerang back into his deck. So that is an interesting point. He didn't get the card draw from it. Now, I think the reason he did this was because he dropped biotech down to a credit pool. Well, but he wouldn't have known that. Yeah, oh, this was a huge misplay. A huge misplay by biotech. Guys, look at this. Okay, so he gets diversion of funds. He reses the boomeranged ice. And then Geist goes ahead and just runs the face down card because he only has 1 credit. He knows that even if it's a Cerebral Overrider, you have to pay 3 credits to res a Cerebral Overrider or activate its ability. Biotech should not have resed Odoroshi. Odoroshi did nothing. It gave 2 credits to Geist, caused a Boomerang to be shuffled back into the deck, and Geist was able to just go ahead and run the remote and trash that Cerebral Overrider that the corp had already invested in. Okay, sorry about that. Had to turn off my Steam friends. Oh, gosh darn it. There we go. Okay, we should be back in. Anyway, so we have a Stargate run now on click 1 from Geist, just going right through that Mind Game. He pays 0 because at this point, he's happy if the corp pays money into that Mind Game Psy Game. Mind Game Psy Game. That's funny. Anyway, so Geist goes ahead and bets 0. The corp bets 0 because he doesn't want to spend any money, and so Geist just keeps going. He runs into the lockdown. Lockdown fires. Now, I will say, this is a little dangerous from Geist, because I don't know if there's a window for him to use his trash can abilities on the corp's turn. I would say probably, but he is affected by that lockdown ability, so he can't draw cards anymore, which means if he takes 2 net damage, or 2 damage of any kind, and this biotech player is running the flip and do 2 net damage, then Geist could potentially die here. Now, the Stargate run reveals Snare, Project Junebug, and Mind Game. He goes ahead and trashes the Mind Game. Now he's going to run Archives to get that Philotic Entanglement that biotech didn't have a preemptive action to shuffle back in. He goes ahead and gets the Philotic Entanglement. However, he accesses, was that 2 Breach Domes? There it is! There's 2 Breach Domes in Archives. Now, all biotech has to do is flip his ID. If this is it, this is the turn to do it. Yep, there it is. There's the flip, and that's kill. Very nice. Very nice indeed. Yeah, so there were a lot of things that I think probably shouldn't have been done in the order that they were done. So Geist runs HQ, sees the Philotic Entanglement. He then should immediately run into Archives and get it. Now, there's 2 reasons why. First off, he had 5 cards in hand after the R&D run ended, which means that, and I hadn't disconsidered that the face downs and Archives could be these Breach Domes. That way, if he runs Archives, and those are Breach Domes, which they were, he takes 2 net damage and he still has 3 cards. Oh, well, meat damage. Takes 2 meat damage and still has 3 cards in hand. He's totally safe from biotech's ability. ID ability. He also scores the Philotic and prevents biotech from using preemptive action to shuffle it back into R&D. Now, I do understand the diversion of funds play because the mentality behind it was, okay, either he has to pay money to res ice, in which case I can run this face down remote for free and not have to worry if it's a trap, or he doesn't res anything and then I steal 5 credits and he loses 5 credits. But the misplay on biotech's part definitely was resing the lockdown and definitely was resing the Odoroshi. Like, he should have just let it come through. He shouldn't have resed anything. Because at that point, he still has 3 credits after the diversion of funds play, and he can still activate Cerebral Overrider. And that would have won him the game because Geist would have ended his turn with 1 card in hand, because he would have had 4 brain damage. Now, he didn't. He rezzed Odoroshi, so he was down to 1 credit. Geist goes ahead and runs the remote and trashes the Cerebral Overrider, which is just a huge tier in biotech's eye. However, our Geist friend here continues to misplay by running R&D and trashing. Don't get me, there was nothing wrong with the Stargate run. The Stargate run was completely A-okay, but he should have ran Archives first, or just done a Stargate run and let the Philotic sit there. He can't do both. Or he should have ran R&D, trashed whatever he wanted, drawn twice, and then ran Archives. Then he would have been fine. Problem is, of course, I know I feel like I'm beating a dead horse here, but the most beautiful interaction of that lockdown mixed with the 2 damage from Breach Dome ended Geist with 1 card in hand, which of course allows the brewery to fire, and that was game. It's one of the few rare times you ever see the brewery end up on top, but there you have it. Man, got to see a brewery win. That's just, oh, that's great. Oh wow, wait a minute, what? Oh, okay, this isn't biotech. Looks like we have a Saraswati deck. So Saraswati is one of the worst Jinteki IDs ever printed. It is install a card, pay a credit, add an agenda counter to that card. So essentially, the only thing that its ID saves you is a click. And now a click isn't small or anything, but when you use this ability on a card, you cannot score or res this card until your next turn begins. So in case that was a little confusing, let's go over that one more time. Saraswati can spend a click and a credit to install a card in a server and put an advancement token on it, and they cannot res or score it until the beginning of their next turn. So it could be an agenda, could be a trap, it could be an NGO front. But the big problem is that a lot of things are anti-synergistic with this ID. NGO front cannot be rezzed and popped at instant speed with Saraswati. So suddenly your NGO fronts lose a lot of their bite. You don't get the investment back on them if the runner decides to run and trash them. The advantage is, of course, that this action saves you a click. It saves you the click you would have spent to manually advance the card in the server. In general, though, it is very hard to make this ID work. Now, Saraswati is doing a pretty good job of just installing everything here. He looks like turn 1 iced HQ, probably to prevent the early diversion of funds on the open HQ. And then from this turn out, or from that next turn out, has just been once a turn using their ability to throw in another card in a server, put an advancement token on it. We have no clue what these 6 cards could be. Now we do see the boomerang come down on the only unrezzed piece of ice here, covering HQ. I actually don't think that's a terrible plan on Geist's part. Normally I harp on boomeranging unrezzed ice, but given the board state right now, this Saraswati is not showing that they have a lot of ice, so they probably can't afford to trash or overwrite this ice. This is an okay time to boomerang an unrezzed piece of ice. Because even if the corp trashes it or overwrites it or chooses not to res it, Geist is fine with that. There's no other ice on the board. It basically creates an iceless board state. Now Saraswati goes ahead and advances manually one of the unres cards in server 1. And the mystery continues. They're just playing this game at a very low number of credits. Geist, meanwhile, has spent the last 5 turns just setting up because they're not under any pressure to move quickly, because Saraswati has not scored a single point. If I had to guess, I'd say this Saraswati is on kill. Now, Saraswati decides not to res the ice, covering HQ. Probably a wise decision. There's no real need to, especially with the boomerang token on it. Geist goes ahead and bravados. Wait, what? He bravados HQ, but then jacks out and gains the bravado money? Oh, because all he wanted was the money. Interesting. Right, because bravado doesn't require a successful run. It just says when the run ends. Now, goes back to Saraswati, who clicks for a credit and advances the card again in server 1, so a total of 3 agenda advancement tokens on it, and advances the card in server 2. Meanwhile, Geist continues to ignore them, installs a spy cam and a street peddler. I think this is smart because really all Geist needs to do is draw their diversion of funds, and all of these traps are pretty much toothless. I'm pretty surprised that the Saraswati player hasn't realized that yet. Did they throw away a hedge fund? What? Why would they? Did they not want money? I'm a little confused. I don't know why that hedge fund is in the bin. Has it always been there and I just never noticed? But here it comes, the diversion of funds. Even if Saraswati reses this piece of ice on HQ, it's boomerang, so it's not like it's going to do anything. Saraswati doesn't res it, lets the diversion of funds come in, and now they're going to be down to 0 credits, which of course is going to allow Geist to have free reign on the board. No fear whatsoever of cerebral overriders or June bugs or anything like that. Not to mention the fact that Saraswati is probably just going to have to spend the next turn clicking 3 times for credits. Ha! Wait a minute! The NGO front! The NGO front! Oh, why didn't I think of that? Okay, so Saraswati reses an NGO front, has 8 credits. Geist decides to jack out? Is that legal? Was there a timing structure for that? I don't know. I'd have to look at the timing structures to see if that's legal or not. It could be, it could not be. It doesn't matter. That's hilarious. Saraswati says, boy, I know what I was doing. You think you got me? I know what I was doing. Get out of my house. Get out of here. Wow, that's hilarious. I love that. Says that 3 agenda, advanced agenda card. You think you know what that is? You ain't. You don't know nothing. Alright, so in the meantime, Geist doesn't really do anything important, but Saraswati Trick of Light's the card in Server 1 with those 3 advancement tokens on it, which kind of signifies that card in Server 1 is a trap, and goes ahead and puts 2 advancement tokens with Trick of Light off of the card in Server 1 onto a medical breakthrough. They also previously mass commercializations, which gets you 2 credits for every card with an advancement token on it, so he's making bank. He's got 20 credits. The Stargate run comes into R&D. It is a completely uniced R&D, and that's going to allow Geist free pick of 3 cards. He sees Trick of Light, Enigma, and Sai Senton. Tough choice. That Trick of Light is tempting, because that's going to make the traps that fail a lot more punishing for the Saraswati player. Enigma is probably not that big of a deal, but Sai Senton might be the one you want. Yeah. So he goes ahead, pays, or doesn't pay, trashes with Stargate, Sai Senton. Probably saying that wrong. It's Japanese, right? So it's Sai Senton. Sai Senton. Anyway, goes back to Saraswati. Saraswati ices R&D. The real benefit of scoring this medical breakthrough is now all additional medical breakthroughs are going to cost 1 fewer advancement point to score. So suddenly, all medical breakthroughs are now 3-2s, and hopefully one day a 2-2. Now, Geist does what makes sense. He goes in for the diversion of funds play on HQ again. Why not? Ice is boomeranged. Still, Saraswati has the money to res it, but still, if he chooses to res it, Geist is just going to break it with that boomerang. He does go ahead and res it because he has the money, and this makes sense. Because it's a Kakugo. And he's running what seems to be a very low ice deck, so he can't afford to just trash this ice and never res it in order to just prevent Geist from firing a boomerang. The real reason this makes sense isn't because Geist is going to have to spend the boomerang to break it. It's because now... of course, he's going to take 1 net damage every time he passes into HQ. I don't understand this. Geist breaks Kakugo with Corroder? That makes no real sense. He should have used the boomerang. I don't understand why he didn't boomerang that Kakugo. When you boomerang a piece of ice, your cost is paid up front. You might as well use it. You can't install another boomerang without overadding your old boomerang until you do. Yeah, I'm quite uncertain as to why he didn't boomerang that, but okay. Now, the Stargate run on R&D reveals that Enigma, the Geist chose not to trash. Of course, he already installed the Amina, knowing... more than likely that the ice on R&D was that Enigma. Amina is going to be very frustrating to deal with because it breaks Enigma for, 2 credits? Yeah, yikes. So Geist pays 2 credits, and the Corp loses a credit because Amina is being used to break something. I actually think that Saraswati probably shouldn't have res this Enigma, because it essentially cost him 4 credits to make the runner lose 2 credits, and now every turn after this, he's going to be paying 1 credit to make the runner lose. The Corp is going to be paying 1 credit to make the runner lose 2. That might sound good, but Geist is going to have more money anyway. Geist really isn't going to have money issues. In fact, he goes ahead and puts another piece of ice on R&D. I maybe would even overwrite this Enigma, but it's kind of the sunk cost principle. He's already paid the cost to res the Enigma. He might as well keep it around. Now, that Stargate run revealed Echo Chamber for the free point, Snare, and Breach Dome. Geist goes ahead and trashes the Snare. That's a fair choice. If he trashes the Breach Dome, that's just where Saraswati wants it anyway. Doesn't really help him. Whoa, Saraswati's turn is already over. So all Saraswati did was install a piece of ice on R&D, and gain 2 credits. Goes back to Geist, who draws 3 cards and installs a Street Peddler. Knowing that there are snares and other tricksy things that Saraswati is trying to do, it probably doesn't hurt to have a pretty big hand size. He's also probably looking for that last tech trader, unless he lost it to damage somewhere along the way. I don't see it. That tech trader's in there somewhere. If I had to guess, I would say that this Geist removed the hostage in order to put political operative in. So the hostage, of course, makes it much slower to get your tech traders, or the lack of a hostage, I should say. Do see another technical writer, and the third breaker, Bugalter, hits the table. Yeah, I was going to say, he shouldn't be able to do that because he doesn't have enough MU. He decides to undo that, says, okay, I don't actually want Bugalter. He's doing something with his... His credits are going all over the place. Now, he could just trash the grappling hook. I mean, that wouldn't be the end of the world. He wants to keep that Stargate because he wants to still provide R&D pressure. He doesn't have any... He doesn't have any kind of Kangamato or Gabalis on the table. 2 Gabalis in the bin. So if he does run into a killer and he grappling hooks, he has to let one of those subroutines fire. Now, he does have a simul chip. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but you could grappling hook, break all but one subroutine on a piece of ice. So then grappling hook hits the bin. Then you could simul chip your grappling hook for free because a program had technically been trashed because the grappling hook would be trashed. Then use grappling hook again to break all but one subroutine and then just break the subroutine you hadn't broken before. Anyway, Geist does go ahead and decide to install the Bugalter and overwrites the grappling hook. I don't know if I agree with that. Especially because you could do what we were talking about earlier. It's not like Geist needs these simul chips. Saraswati isn't trying to trash his programs. He could certainly sacrifice one of them to do that combo. Yeah, a couple questionable moves coming out from Geist. He didn't use the boomerang on the Kakugo. Yeah, I think he should have kept the grappling hook on the table. And we see a double click for credits on the corpse turn and using preemptive action again to shuffle 3 more cards back into the deck. You can kind of tell what the corpse game plan is by the cards they choose to shuffle back in. So he shuffles Trick of Light, NGO Front, and Snare. And it makes sense. He leaves the hedge fund in the bin. He doesn't need it. He runs mass commercialization. He can make enough money off that probably whenever he needs. The NGO Front lets him double as Econ and tricky traps. Like, ooh, I'm on zero credits. Or am I? The Snare, of course, needs no explanation. It's good in any Jinteki deck that's trying to deal damage. And then Trick of Light, so that you can throw those failed traps, advancement tokens, on something useful. I don't think the Saraswati is out of it. I think this Saraswati deck is tricky enough and doesn't rely solely on just keeping the runner out that they still have a chance. Even though Geist is going to be able to get into these servers frequently, there's enough tricksy things going on that Saraswati probably has an out. For instance, if any of these cards are agendas, they have an out. If any of them are Ronins, he has an out. Now, we do see the Stargate run on R&D and another Sai Senton rezzed. So we know Saraswati's running at least 2 of them. Now, Saisentan's kind of like Koma Inu. Costs the same but has a set number of subroutines instead of Koma Inu's variable number. It does have a funny... When the runner encounters this size, choose a card type for the remainder of the encounter whenever you try a card of that type with net damage from the subroutine on the size. Yeah, it has the potential to kind of deal double damage with its net damage. But yeah, it should really just be viewed as a Koma Inu alternative. It's better, obviously, if the corp or the runner has a lower hand size. Whereas Koma Inu, of course, is going to be better on that turn 1 res. Runner has nothing on the board and a full hand, and they just go, oh, well, I guess I dumped my entire hand in the bin. Now, the Stargate run revealed a future perfect. Of course, they're still going to have to play that side game. Geist goes ahead and runs into Archives, plays a side game, bets 0, because they know every time the corp wants to protect that agenda, they have to bet at least a credit if Geist bets 0. I hope that made sense. Essentially, Geist knows if they run into Archives and bet 0 every time, the corp either has to lose money or they get the agenda. It's like hedging your bets. So he runs in there, bets 0 twice. Each time Saraswati is betting 1. He runs in there a third time, and Saraswati thought they were going to be clever, and they're like, oh, I bet 0. I bet 1 2 times. I bet Geist bets 1 now. No, Geist never intended to bet anything other than 0. So Saraswati bets 0, Geist continues to bet 0, and he gets the future perfect out of the bin. Not a great interaction with Saraswati economically, because then on the next turn they had to spend 2 clicks to gain those credits that they spent in those side games back, and then they use their ID ability to throw another card on the table and put an agenda advancement token on it. Another Stargate run coming from Geist. Now Geist's resources are running a little thin. He's gonna be fine, but he is down to 2 credits. And he doesn't have any fancy boomerangs or gabalis or grappling hooks on the table. So he's going to need to make a little bit of money before he decides to continue on. With that Stargate run, he reveals Project Junebug, Gene Splicer, and Trick of Light, and goes for the Trick of Light. That's a tough choice, because I think Trick of Light definitely is a card you want to trash. It probably still is the correct card to choose. I would be really tempted to go for the Gene Splicer myself. The Project Junebug is a wash. You know, it's tough. It's so cheap to trash if you run into it on a normal day. You can kind of play around it, make it so that if the corp has 0 credits, it can't fire, but obviously we've seen that this guy runs NGO fronts for that fast action money. So that might not even be an option to play around Junebug. We see another turn out of Saraswati. Double click for credits. And then Saraswati, another card on the table. You have to think some of these are agendas. You have to think some of them are agendas. In fact, if 2 of them are medical breakthroughs, then more or less Saraswati just needs 1 more point to win the game. Because what they can do is they can double click one of these 1 advancement cards, score it if it's a medical breakthrough, and then the next medical breakthrough only requires a single click. So, again, if 2 of these face down cards are medical breakthrough, then Saraswati only needs 3 credits and 1 more point to win the game. Now Geist goes ahead and runs HQ. The real issue is that Geist has burnt through a significant portion of his deck. Which Geist does normally because they have to in order to set up. However, that Kakugo is going to deal with that 1 net damage anytime Geist passes through it. He does go ahead and runs and boomerangs it, which is smart, because now he can shuffle Boomerang back into his deck. and he's kind of in that perfect situation, right? He's in that perfect situation where he has probably a boomerang in hand, possibly 2 boomerangs in hand, 1 card in his stack, or 1 boomerang in his stack. And what he can do now is he can run every turn and use Prognostic Q Loop to install another boomerang and use it, and then shuffle it back into his deck. It's a pretty cool combo. Not game breaking or anything, but I'm a little confused because the runner has said I don't break end the run, but he used boomerang. They're having a couple issues. One, the corp is going to leave and rejoin, so we'll see if that fixes the problem. A bunch of things just fired. That was a little weird. We'll let them figure out how to fix this situation, and we'll focus more on the game state of the game as it is now. Now, because of all of these preemptive actions, the only actual cards in archives is a hedge fund and a trick of light. You have to assume Saraswati's running 3 tricks of lights, which means that there are 2 floating around somewhere else, which allows Saraswati a lot more wiggle room with those traps. Now, there is a Kakugo on HQ and enough ice on R&D that eventually Geist will need to find a way to make more money if he wants to continue running R&D. Now, what he's really afraid of is hitting the Breach Dome. Did we ever see a Breach Dome? Let's do a quick text search. Yes. Stargate revealed a Breach Dome at one point. I thought it did. And what really makes that scary is a Breach Dome is going to hurt Geist's hand and his stack. And his stack is going to be full of recurring boomerangs. Which means that ultimately Breach Domes are going to remove what Geist wants to have as a permanent part of his endgame combo, which is that infinite boomerang cycle. Now, he does have a card called the Back. What this is he can spend a click to remove all the power counters off of it and remove the back from the game, I think. Yes. You remove it from the game and you can pull back as many cards as you had power counters that have trash can symbols. That'll keep him in the game a little longer, depending on when he needs to use it. But he still doesn't want to have to use it, because when he does, then he well and truly is out of the game if he runs out of cards. Now, I don't understand why he ran HQ. It said, I guess Boomerang technically reads break up to 2 ice subroutines, so he used Boomerang but didn't break any subroutines and then let Kakugo end the run. Now he Stargates R&D, he reveals Gene Splicer, Kakugo, and Enigma, and trashes the Kakugo. That makes sense. He doesn't want to be taking more net damage. If I was Saraswati and I drew a Kakugo, I would probably put it right on R&D, and then the game would be very, very difficult for Geist to manage. Oh, interesting. This guy still runs... What is going on? Strange. I don't know if it's because the Corp was still having problems with the game. He rejoined. He just keeps joining and rejoining. Man, that's really sad. I feel like Saraswati really had a chance here. I don't think he left the game because he rage quit because of the trash on the Kakugo. He still has plenty of other options. What else did the Stargate reveal? Gene Splicer, Enigma. I mean, Enigma isn't great. Maybe you throw that on archives? Maybe. But again, it costs you 4 credits to make the runner spend 2. It's not amazing in this matchup. Yeah, the runner went ahead and left. That's too bad. I really don't think that Saraswati was out of this. I almost guarantee that some of these cards were agendas. And unfortunately, due to the mysterious nature of the deck, we can't really use any kind of logic to piece together what these might be, because there's nothing in the bin to indicate what they are. We saw enough of them. We knew that there were probably a couple of gene splicers on the table. Well, maybe not a couple, but one. A gene splicer, a snare. Could have even been Junebug. Oh, well. Well, that's a pity. We will never know how the mystery of Saraswati ends. Go ahead and join a new game. We see Reina Roja versus, is that Builder of Nation or Building a Better World? Building a Better World. Wayland Consortium, the original Wayland ID, gain an extra credit anytime you play a transaction card. Wow, we are already on turn 4, and there's like a bazillion cards in the bin here. Okay, technically most of them are operations, so more than likely Wayland was playing these operations. Reina also has a tag, which I'm a little confused about. I don't know where that came from. Where did this tag come from? Oh, it came from the Mausolus. Alright, so Reina's running like mad here. Of course, Reina forces the corp to spend an extra credit anytime they res a piece of ice. So, Mausolus, of course, costs 5, and Toll Booth costs 9. But, because of all that money in the bin, and the fact that Wayland wants to make more money every time they play an operation anyway, these two IDs kind of cancel each other out. In fact, I would argue that Wayland probably gets the better deal out of this exchange. Now, Death and Taxes is on the table, so anytime the runner installs a card or trashes an installed card, Wayland is going to gain another credit. We see these red level clearances being used, and the real reason for that is because they are transaction cards, so they are essentially played for free by Wayland. The game is moving too quick for me to pull apart each and every move, so we're just going to go right into what's happening right now. Reina is running into a remote, revealing a Whoredom, goes ahead and jacks out, just wanted to get the trigger on her IDD ability. There is a mystery card in server 1, unknown. She doesn't contest it, she can't contest it, she has no breakers on the table, installs a Hippo, has liberated accounts and has clicked it 3 times, so she has 14 credits. Well able to get something started here. The mystery card in server 1 was a wall-to-wall, which is going to allow Wayland to trigger 3 of those abilities. Goes ahead, draws a card, puts an advancement token on Toll Booth? That might have been a mistake. Might have meant to do that on Mausolus, but whatever. He could be running mass commercialization. And goes ahead and gains a credit off of it anyway. Puts another piece of ice on HQ. Kind of signifies that there are agendas in HQ. Puts a card in server 1 next to wall-to-wall. Now, wall-to-wall is an asset, so that card has to be an upgrade. Could be a Mumbad, could be, I don't know, Pricek. Could be anything, but those are often 2 very common neutral choices. Okay. And Reina takes her turn to just draw cards, install the turning wheel, and use a lib account. Meanwhile, Wayland reveals that the upgrade on R&D was Kayambe Grid, which of course, as we know, allows you to add an advancement token on a card at the beginning of your turn. I don't understand how Mausolus suddenly got... Oh, okay. So what happened is Wall-to-Wall added an advancement token onto Mausolus, Kayambe Grid added an advancement token onto Mausolus, and then he manually advanced Mausolus the 3rd time. Kayambe Grid, of course, is also going to force the runner to spend 2 credits for every piece of ice with an advancement token on it in the server. So right now it's going to cost 2 credits to run R&D. Reina decides to run Archive. She has plenty of money but no breakers on the table. Hits a Firewall, which again, Wayland has to pay an extra credit to res that, dropping down to 1 credit. So they're very low. Reyna's very happy with this. This is typically Reyna's plan. Reyna's plan is to force the Corp to run res one piece of ice a turn, and then either through de-res effects or more than likely ice destruction, such as the Cutlery or Hippo, then trash that ice. So they're forcing the Corp to spend more than they want to anyway, and then they're going ahead and just removing it from the board after the Corp reses it. A Corroder from Reyna hits the table, so Reyna is able to break that singular barrier that we see on archives. It goes back to Weyland, who uses wall-to-wall to get pretty good value out of putting advancement tokens on things. Goes ahead and manually advances Firewall and then plays Mass Commercialization to go ahead and gain 10 credits for the 10 cards with advancement tokens on them, and then spends their last click to put another piece of ice on R&D, or sorry, not R&D, the remote. That wall-to-wall server still having that upgrade that we don't know what it is. Probably isn't a Kayambe grid, or Weyland would have used it by now, although I suppose it could still be. Reyna on the other side of the table throws down their Angolos. They have 2 of the 3 breakers and the Mystic Miami, which is going to let them spend money off of Mystic Miami to play events, probably things like Cutlery and Sure Gamble and Dirty Laundry. Wall-to-wall fires again, giving Weyland great value out of this asset they installed. Their first click is Hedge Fund, but wait, I lost a click here. Okay, so they just hedge fund and put another piece of ice on HQ and R&D, and they have the money to do this. They were at 1 credit not too long ago, but through mass commercialization, hedge fund, and wall-to-wall, they are now up to 17 credits with a very, very iced board state. In spite of the fact that Reyna is forcing Weyland to spend more money to res ice, it's not mattering. Mostly because, well, they just have so much ice. Now, I don't know if I agree with this. Weyland reses this outermost piece of ice, but Reyna has an Angolo on the table, which means she can convert this into a code gate, and then, yep, she just hippos it. But you have to expect. And that's a pity because Surveyor is just going to get stronger the more ice you have on the table. One counter against Hippo is to do this. What Weyland is doing on HQ, where they have an extra piece of ice on the outside. Hippo can never fire if there's a piece of ice on the outside that is unres. Now, Reyna doesn't even continue the run because they know that this card is in this server is just an upgrade. They just wanted to get rid of more ice on the remote server, and they drop a Paladin Poemu, which can be used to install anything that isn't a connection resource. Well, technically a connection card. I suppose one day they might print a non-connection, non-resource connection. Meanwhile, though, Weyland is more than happy just to set up like a madman. Weyland has 4 pieces of ice on R&D, 3 pieces of ice on HQ, 2 on the remote and 1 on archives, and is putting agenda counters everywhere. Mass commercialization is going to make them rich. Meanwhile, Reyna continues to try to do what Reyna wants to do, but is very poor right now. They went ahead and installed a Keiko, which is going to recur the first credit spent from a companion. They have their turning wheel on the table. They have 2 breakers. They trashed their Stargate because they're not getting an R&D anytime soon. There's probably no way they're getting into R&D because even to initiate the run, they are going to have to pay 8 credits due to Kayambe Grid. Now, the mystery card in server 1 is revealed. It is the Embolus. When your turn begins, pay 1 credit to put 1 power counter on the upgrade. Whenever the runner makes a successful run, remove 1 power from the upgrade. However, it's basically like Biovolt. You can remove a power counter to end the run. It's pretty rough. Chokehold Reyna, because that's typically the only viable Reyna deck, Chokehold Reyna, is being chokeholded by Weyland. There's no way that Reyna is going to be able to get into these servers. This Kayambe Grid makes it impossible for Reyna to get into R&D. She's just not running in R&D. It's not happening. The Embolus is going to be building up tokens each turn. Every turn, essentially, well, what is it? When the runner makes a successful run, remove 1 power counter from this upgrade. So you might as well never let the runner make... Oh, but it only fires on this server. So essentially, okay. There is counterplay to Embolus. I always read it wrong. So essentially, Reyna goes ahead and runs archives, trashes the firewall using Spooned and converting it into a code gate with Angolo. And now, successful runs on archives do qualify for removing power counters from Embolus. So now that archives is open, it's an option for removing Embolus counters, but it's not going to matter in the long run because Wayland probably has more ice to put over there. And at the very worst, it taxes Reyna a click to do that. Now it's back to Wayland. They have their chance to respond to however they want to approach winning the game. They feel in a very powerful situation. They go ahead and ice archives, take a credit, and then IPO. You might think that's overkill, but if they actually have to res all this ice, they'll drop in credits very quickly. So having more money at this point of the game is not overkill. Although you have to think Reyna's never going to run R&D, so these 3 unresed pieces of ice on R&D almost don't even count. Reyna goes ahead and runs archives, checking the piece of ice that Wayland just installed, which is Blockchain. Blockchain is a wonderful piece of ice that gains subroutines for every 2 transactions in the bin. There are a lot of transactions in this bin. There's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So there's 6 extra subroutines on this. There's 8 subroutines on this piece of ice. 8. Jeez. Alright, so even to just break it with Corroder, she would need to spend so much money. 10 credits to break it with Corroder. Now, she has the money to do that. She could spend the 10 and trash Blockchain with Hippo. But even then, I don't think Wayland cares. They're just going to say, go ahead, spend all of your money and another Hippo, breaking this piece of ice that didn't make me go broke to put down on res. In the meanwhile, Rain is doing all of this not to get an agenda, not to break a critical asset or something. They're doing this just to remove a power counter from Embolus. Because even after this run, they still have to make the run on the remote. Nareda goes ahead and pays the 10, trashes Hippo, gets rid of the Blockchain, hits archives, removes a power counter from Embolus, but does it matter? He goes back to Wayland, who's going to get another trigger of wall-to-wall. You have to assume their hand, HQ, is probably completely full of agendas. The real issue is that Reyna just can't run anywhere. Where's she going to go? Wall-to-wall is continually putting advancement tokens on this outer piece of ice. You have to assume it's something like a firewall or an ice wall or even a Colossus. Did Colossus get added back in? I think it did. Anyway, this piece of ice here is something that gains benefits from continually adding counters to it, more than likely in the form of gaining extra strength. Now it goes ahead and puts another piece of ice on our HQ. Probably the reason to do that is to prevent this outermost piece of ice from getting hippoed. There is one more hippo floating around somewhere. And Reyna's playing her deck. Don't get me wrong. It's not like she's making horrible, awful moves or something. She's installing her cards. She's getting her companions up. She's doing what her deck wanted to do. Although this isn't the most oppressive Reyna deck I've ever seen, there's certainly an obvious strategy here. It is to use Engolo to convert things into code gates and then trash them with Spooned, and trash other cards, other ice with Hippo, and then just use the companions to their general effect, which is the companions on their own as a one-of in any Anarch deck is generally pretty good. But in spite of all that, she's down to 2 credits, and you have these massively iced servers. Another Kayambe grid hits HQ, so Reyna's never running HQ. Her literal only choices are archives and server 1. I guess literally isn't quite true. mean, if she wanted to spend 8 credits, she can run these servers, but this is not going to happen. Reyna's in a chokehold situation where Wayland doesn't even have to res these pieces of ice for them to give him value. Look at that. Mass commercialization last turn gained him 20 credits. For a single click, he gained 20 credits. Wall-to-wall continually giving him advancement tokens on cards, as well as draw and another credit. Reyna is desperately running archives over and over again. Reveals the Mazvingo. Mazvingo now has only a single end the run subroutine on it, so breaking that with Corroder isn't going to break the bank. Reyna is allowed to use those Trickster Taka credits, I should say, to pay for these expenses, and she is using the Mystic Miami to do things like Dirty Laundry, so she's making money off of this, but it's just not enough. She's on a slippery slope, and each turn she slips a little lower. Yeah, because now essentially Wall-to-Wall just adds another advancement token on Mazvingo, so Mazvingo now has 2 subroutines, so it's going to cost... It went from costing 2 credits to break with Corroder, now it's going to cost 3, and every turn after that it's going to cost an additional credit. And Bolas is continually going to gain subroutines each turn, so if Reyna's not running archives each and every turn, and Bolas is just going to have an infinite amount of subroutines, which will make this server unrunnable. With each turn, another server becomes less and less runnable by Reyna. And if she loses control of the Embolus, she can't run the remote, and literally it'll just be archives that she can run. She draws twice. I can't imagine what she's looking for. She's already lost the game. And again, I don't say that because Reyna's making like horrible choices here. It's just that this is a tricky situation to be in, and her game plan of run once a turn, force the corp to res something, jack out, it's all my stuff, doesn't work against this archetype. It does not work against this Wayland Consortium, who is going to make bank, and they're more than happy with a slow game, because it's just going to let all of their triggers get them more and more and more each turn. Embolus already has 2 counters. Reyna has to somehow run archives twice before even considering to run the remote. Yeah, and Wayland knows this game's over, so they go ahead, they overwrite wall-to-wall, they install a card in server 1, which has to be an agenda. They advance a piece of ice? Huh. There must be some reason to do that, but yeah, just in general, Reyna can't do anything. She would have to run... I guess she could run this remote 3 times, but the corp is just going to end the run right when she passes this Whoredom every turn. Now, Reyna does have money. She has 17 credits. And she does have... Something I've failed to mention is she has 4 agenda points. So it's not like she has nothing score-wise. But it's just not enough. Oh, wow, it's not even an agenda. That would explain why there's no advancement tokens on it. Okay, it's the Lady Liberty. So Wayland's goal here is just to use the Lady Liberty to just start adding agendas out of HQ into their score area. My guess is that they have the perfect suite of agendas in their hand that they're going to just be able to triple click, add an agenda, triple click, add an agenda, triple click, add an agenda. Yeah, so Reyna, at the start of her turn, daily casts is making her money. It's just... How does she get out of this? Realistically, if this Wayland isn't running any 3-pointers aside from Global Food, she can't hope for the Hail Mary. And even to run R&D or HQ to hope for the Hail Mary, she has to spend 8 credits to do it. So she doesn't have 18 credits. She has 10. And Waylon has more than enough money to res any of this ice, especially this 11 strength monster over here, which you have to think is like a Firewall or a Colossus, like one of those two. I mean, I suppose it could be a Mazvingo. That would achieve the same effect against Corroder, essentially forcing Corroder to spend one more credit each time. But I don't think Reyna has an out, because essentially she can't run HQ. It's too expensive, because she's gonna have to pay 8 credits up front. Let's assume this is just a Mazvingo. I think that's the best case scenario. If it's a Colossus, it's horrible. But let's assume it's a Mazvingo. So she has to spend like 12 or 13, 14 credits just to break that Mazvingo. It's not going to happen. She runs Archives. I don't agree with this. I think the play is to run R&D. She's going to try to trash the Mazvingo with Hippo. But the problem is this is a losing move. She's going to spend a bunch of resources to do this. So she spends 7 credits plus the 2 credits for Hippo just to break Mazvingo. She makes a successful run. She removes a power counter from a Bolus, makes another run on Archives, removes another power counter from a Bolus, but that's her turn. I think what she's trying to do is go in and kill the Lady Liberty. But I still think that's a losing move. Well, what am I saying? All of her moves are losing at this point. Waylon draws, more than likely looking for ice. Plays preemptive action to put 3 cards back in R&D. Oh, something I didn't even notice is that Waylon is down to 1 card in R&D, so this preemptive action was calculated. It's going to put 4 more cards back in R&D. What do they put in? Firewall, Blockchain, Surveyor. Probably just things they want to put on Archives. Now, Reyna runs twice on Archives to remove 2 power counters from Bolus. And Stim hacks the remote. I love it. Now, I think she should have clicked to take 4 off of Lib account, but whatever. Oh, this is just sad. Border control. So even when... Oh my goodness, another border control. That's game. So Reyna's going to come in here and break all this stuff. But Waylon's just going to end the run. Oh my goodness, and a blockchain. How many subroutines does that have? Too many to count. We were at like 12 right here. 14. So it has like a million subroutines. She goes ahead and breaks it. She's going in. Hits the Horde and is going to break that with Angolo. But now border control is just going to end the run. Now I love the stim hack play. That was definitely a way to try to do it. But border control gets popped. Now she has the choice to run in again, but she doesn't have the money to do it. So Waylon doesn't even have to use their second border control. I think if there was just one border control on the remote, probably would have worked. Maybe, kind of. But now with that second border control, it's just Waylon isn't even in any danger whatsoever. Reyna lost... What did she lose to brain damage? Mining accident? Yeah, she's never going to use that. At this point, I think she just lost. Wait, what? When the runner approaches this server, they pay 2 credits. So what's going on? Oh, okay. I think I had Haas-Bioroid wrong. You don't pay money to run the server, you pay money to approach the server. Wait, what? I'm a little confused because I thought Haas-Bioroid forced you to pay the money in order to even run. Anyway, blockchain is rezzed. It forces the runner to lose all their money because of all of the billion subroutines. And it also just gains Wayland a bunch of money. So they kind of rezzed it for free. Another power counter gets added to Lady Liberty. Lady Liberty is going to reach the point, of course, where Wayland can just use her to just score agenda points for free. Raina's not going to give up. She runs archives to remove the Embolus counter, but she has 6 credits to her name. It's not going to be enough, especially not to fight the blockchain traces. Not traces, subroutines. Yeah, and just in general, she can't really play the game anymore. I'm gonna look up real quick how that Haas-Bioroid interaction functions, because what does approaching the server mean? Does that mean you run the whole thing and then approaching the server is probably only at the very end? I probably had that wrong. So you don't have to spend the money on Haas-Bioroid until let's see here. I don't know. Since Jinteki isn't forcing it to fire, I'm going to assume that it only counts when you get to the end and you have to choose to go into the server itself. Anyways, we see an ambitious run from Raina, still trying to get into this remote, but blockchain's just going to keep her out, right? What? A boomerang from Raina? Okay, so I see what's happening here. Raina is choosing to let blockchain fire, but this is a moot point because essentially they're going, okay, I'll just use Corroder to break the end the run subroutine on blockchain, because all the other subroutines just read the corp gains 1 credit and the runner loses 1 credit. Then they're going to boomerang horde them so they get through, but it doesn't matter because how are they going to trash Lady Liberty? This is a pointless move because they have 0 credits. They're not stopping Lady Liberty. They realize their mistake. Yeah, the horrible thing about blockchain is you still need a credit per subroutine. So you might as well just break all the subroutines on blockchain. So they made it into the server, but they can't trash anything in the server. Wayland was able to go ahead and score, oh goodness, a vanity project. I think it's the only like 4-point agenda in the game. It's just a blank text agenda. So vanity project scored with Lady Liberty right out of hand. You have to assume the next turn is going to be another vanity project. Or a global food, or really anything. Maybe even the government takeover. Although I don't know if this deck needs that much agenda density. Strange. Does Wayland not have it? Do they not draw it? Huh. Well, Rain is at 0 credits. I'm assuming... Let's do some quick math here. All right, Wayland, Building a Better World has 45 cards, right? So you're assuming a 49-card deck, and what is that? Between 21 and 22 agenda points? I think that's it. So you have 3, 6, 10. Where on... Surely they have more agenda points in hand. I'm very confused. It almost seems like they're just extending the game needlessly at this point. Okay, because what happened is they had 1 card in R&D. They decided a preemptive action to shuffle 3 more cards from archives into R&D. Yeah, that's... They either could have just let them draw the next R&D card on the next turn through the mandatory draw. Nah, this is bad form. Okay, they add the government takeover to their deck. Or to their score area, I mean. That's 6 plus 4 is 10. 3 and 3 is 16. Yeah, they had the agendas in hand. I don't know. I think they just wanted to score the government takeover. Perhaps they drew it after that. Because let's assume the other 2 are vanity projects. So there's 3 vanity projects for 12 agenda points. Government takeover for another 6, so that's 18. Plus 3 and 3. 3 and 3 would be 24. Is that too much? Maybe it's not another vanity project. Maybe the other one is a global food. Anyway. Well, that was certainly an interesting Wayland deck, although I think most runners aren't going to give Wayland enough time to set up like that. This Reyna deck wasn't bad by any means. In general, though, Reyna is kind of considered to be a lower tier Anarch card. Chokehold Reyna only works against certain kinds of corps, basically corps that don't make money or turtle like this. And even then, it's not guaranteed to work against all corp types. Like, NBN can still tag you and kill you. But it works really well against corps that want to res ice and keep it on the board and never have to spend any more money on it. Anyway, I'm going to take a quick pause there and regain some of my voice, and then when we... Oh, no, look at the time. Actually, that's it. I feel like our games ran a little long today. We have time for one more, right? Let's watch Polana versus Az. I love Az. I don't think he's amazing, but I love his ability. I love just getting to discount jobs and connections. So much fun. And then, of course, you get the 1 link because bad runners get 1 link. And then Polana Foods needs no introduction. Gain a credit anytime. I always say that wrong. The first time each turn the runner draws a card. So we're on turn 3. We see nannies out of Polana and a rezzed crick on HQ, as well as an ice on R&D and an ice protecting those nannies. See a very interesting choice here from Az, installing the Bagat. Of course, that's going to trash a card from R&D the first time you make a successful run on HQ. To be fair, running HQ is a very criminal thing to do. Now, we have 2 cards removed from the game, Mobius and Public Terminal, which I'm not sure how that... Oh, from the Gachapon. Gachapon? Something like that. Alright. So we see Az running a little Anarch today with Gachapon and Bagat. Looking to trash some cards here. He has no breakers installed, but an interesting Q coherence chip, which will provide him a memory so long as none of his programs are trashed ever. In response, Polana puts another piece of ice on all of their already iced servers, leaving archives open, but everything else with 2 pieces of ice. As Diversion of Funds HQ boldly, without anything installed to help him break anything. And Polana responds by saying, okay, and reses an Anansi on HQ. Az is in a bit of trouble here. He's going to take 4 net damage. Meaning that if he wants to run Crick, he would have to win the Psy game or just die. Now you have to assume that Az is probably going to pay the 2 credits to draw a card here, so he's going to have 6 cards in hand. Oh, wait a minute. No, if he pays the 2 credits to draw a card from Anansi, then he can still run Crick. Yeah, so he does pay the 2 to draw a card. He takes all that net damage from Anansi. Takes 2 damage from Crick. Doesn't play a side game. Runs in HQ. Bagat forces a trash off the top card of R&D. However, because Anansi allowed Polana to see and rearrange the top 5 cards of R&D, they knew what card they were trashing. They got to choose to trash their least valuable card. And altogether, Az didn't get a ton out of that. Definitely lost more than he gained. He did force the Corp to lose 5 credits, plus the 8 credits to res Anansi, and he gained 5 credits himself, but he had to pitch his entire hand to do it. Ooh, lost quite a bit here. Did lose his other diversion of funds. All diversion of funds are in the bin. There are going to be no more accounts of money stealing today, unless somehow he recurs them. Polana goes ahead and installs an upgrade in server 1, or already had an upgrade installed, my mistake, and installs a new card and double advances it. Going back to Az, we see Gachapon installed. Is he going to use it? You would assume so. We also see Corporate Grant hit the table, which of course is going to force the Corp to lose a credit every time they install a card. The runner installs a card. Sorry, again, saying that wrong. The first time, each turn, the runner installs a card. So potentially forcing the Corp to lose 2 credits a round. If you have instant install triggers, although this Az does not. He installs a Stargate. This isn't Az! This isn't a criminal deck, this is an Anarch deck in disguise! Crick is res for credit, doing 2 net damage, causing Az to lose, Bravado and Mackler. This guy even plays like an Anarch! This is the most Anarch Az I've ever seen. This little kid just wants to watch the world burn. Alright, Sadaka is rezzed, or Sadaka. I think that's one of the, what was it? The African cards? I don't know how to pronounce African words. Look at the top 3 cards of R&D. You may draw a card, and you may trash a card in HQ. If you do trash 1 resource, he goes ahead and does it, and trashes the turning wheel. Oh man, Az has even less tools to play around with. Now this is a Stargate run though, so Az will get to see 3 cards. He sees an Anansi, an NGO front, and a Rashida. Wisely trashes the Anansi. Doesn't want to run into more of those. Polana, meanwhile, just continues to advance the card in server 1. It is, wow. You don't often score these. It is a future perfect. So that's 3 points for Polana. Although a blank text ability in the score area. I don't know if it matters. Az is playing so reckless here. So reckless. This is seriously the most metal Az I've seen. Just trashes all of his stuff. Runs without any breakers installed. Diversion of funds into a double ice HQ with nothing to break ice. Oh man. I love it. I love the balls on this guy. Or, shoot. Wait. No, Az is, I think I've been saying this wrong. Az is female, isn't she? Crap. I always get this wrong because I didn't realize that Az was... Az is female, right? Oh my gosh, I think I've been saying it wrong. Is as McCaffrey. Oh no, that should not get him my search engine. I'll just go to Nisei. Nisei as McCaffrey. No, it does say him. Okay, good, good. As the boy. We're good. Alright. What did I miss? We had a Rashida Fire. And then 2 installed cards, an advancement on the naked installed remote. Meanwhile, as he's not sure what to do, they hostage for... Wait, what? Hold on, what did they do? They played Sure Gamble. Oh, they just discarded hostage. It's fine. They drew a bunch of cards and discarded one. See another advancement on the card in server 2 from Polana, and another piece of ice on the remote. Make a triple iced remote. None of that ice is res though, so you have to assume Polana has to have the money to res it. Probably doesn't unless they're very cheap ice like Crick or other things like that. Mind game. As chooses this time to Fisk, giving the Corp a tough choice because they've got 8 cards in hand. They're going to mandatory draw another card on the next turn. They're going to start the turn with 9 cards in hand. Only 3 clicks to respond, which means at best they can probably hope to just discard one of them. At worst, they discard 4. As installs Mystic Miami and Louis Gilm. What is this deck? What is this deck even trying to do? Okay, so Louis Gilhelm hits the table on the turn whereas Fisked, which means that the Corp further has a smaller hand size. Probably going to have to discard some things here. That's an interesting move. It doesn't specifically synergize with Az or something, but that's an interesting way to do it. You Fisk and then Louis. So the Corp goes ahead and installs 3 cards, but now they have to trash 2 of them from HQ. Still not the end of the world, though, because you get to choose those 2. So we have 3 cards installed on the table. Wow! Followed up by another 1-2 punch. Az goes ahead and Fisks again. Which means the Corp is going to have to have 8 cards at the beginning of their next turn, and they're only going to be able to hold 4 of them. Which means even if they triple install again, they have to trash a single card. They also don't have a ton of money, although you have to wonder if the card in server 2 isn't an NGO front. Super reckless Az deck. I love this. Just burns through his deck, no cares in the world, pulls out all the Fisks, and then says, I'm gonna Louis Gilhelm ya and make you trash cards from HQ. Then he plays Rip Deal. Oh my goodness. Is he gonna Rip Deal? He's gonna Rip Deal and pull back the Fisks and just keep doing this. So he approaches Anansi. He says, go ahead, fire Anansi. I don't care. So Anansi's gonna fire. Az is gonna have to take 4 more damage to get through this. Plus another 2 from Crick. He only has 5 cards in hand, so you assume he's going to pay the 2 credits off of Anansi to draw a card. Oh, I don't know if I agree with this. The Corp used Anansi's ability to draw a card. But the Begot now makes sense. Because while he's doing this, while he's running HQ, that forces another card off of R&D to be trashed. This is a mill deck. This is an Az mill deck. This is insane. I've never seen anything like this. Look at that. He even runs a Dr. Lovegood. The reason that Dr. Lovegood is here is to blank Louis Gilhelm. No, that can't be it, can it? Because Louis Gilhelm, you could just trash Louis instead of keeping him out. No, I think that's why that's here. The Dr. Lovegood is here to blank Louis, because I don't see another target for it. What really weirds me out is this Q coherence chip. Like, why is that here? He doesn't need the MU, does he? Not really. Anyway, so he does go ahead and gets an HQ, and he pulls back. Oh, he pulls back Bugalter. Huh. Okay. Could have sworn he was going to pull back Fisk. So for those of you who don't know, Rip Deal allows you to run HQ, and then you can add any number of cards from your heap, I believe. Let me make sure. Yeah. You add cards from your heap equal to the number of accesses you would have had. And in this case, that's just 1, because he has no HQ interfaces or anything like that. But he adds Bugalter back to his grip. I assume he wants to install Bugalter and break Anansi, but I don't think you do that. I think you pull back a Fisk, and you keep Fisking every turn. Look at that. All 3 Fisks are in the bin. Anyway, NGO front was in server 2. He runs archives, but there was a breach dome in archives, so he loses another card and he loses his final card in R&D. He can't hit more than 2 breach domes now at this point. The real problem is, in spite of all those fancy moves from Az, that still doesn't stop the Corp from just scoring in their remote that was never contested. Man, that is a cool Az deck. There it is, for those of you who want to see it. We have every card in the deck is shown here, minus the one in Az's hand. I'm sure you can reverse engineer this if you want to play this. This seems like a really fun deck. I don't think it's a super good deck, but man, that is crazy. The whole point is to just fish for your Fisks while making money with things like high stakes jobs, bravado. He even had the public terminal, so that way your run events are a little cheaper. And I don't know if that's mandatory, but it's probably one of those situations where you don't have anything better to put in, so you might as well put in something. A lot of these cards are expendable, so losing them with Gachapon doesn't matter. What really confuses me is the Q coherence chips. I don't think he's running a console. I think that's why the Q coherence chip is in here. No, he is. Look, masterwork. Why the heck are the Q coherence chips in here? What do they do? They do nothing. Nothing synergizes with extra memory. They're just blank cards. That's... I must be missing something. No. No, I'm not. Alright, guys. Reverse engineer this deck. Then remove the 3 Q coherence chips, because they're doing literally nothing. And then fine-tune this strategy, because I think this Az player has an interesting idea. Because the idea is to... It's a mill deck. It's a mill deck coming from Criminal. I don't even know if you need Az to do this, though. Let me see. What does Az get you? So, when you install a job or connection, right, or a piece of hardware, you get a -1 discount. Well, Q coherence chip is already 0, so that doesn't count. You do install your public terminals for free. That's something. Louis Gilhiram doesn't cost any money anyway, so he's not being helped. Bagat is a credit cheaper. That's actually a big deal. Bagat's big problem is he's super expensive to play. I know 3 credits doesn't sound like a lot, but the problem is if you want to make use of him, you want to play him early. And 3 credits early in the game is pretty expensive. And you also have to be able to make runs on HQ. So you have to be able to pay 3 credits and have your breakers out and run HQ. Or you put them down early and now you're broke. Because if you put them down turn 1, you're down to 2 credits. You run HQ and you're like, ha! I forced you to trash 1 card off R&D. And then the next turn they go, I guess I put ice on HQ, and now you can't run HQ anymore because you were down to 2 credits. So yeah, being able to install Bagat a credit cheaper, definitely see the value there. Gachapon just seems like something to get through the deck quicker. It doesn't synergize specifically with Az or anything like that. The diversion of funds are pretty self-explanatory. Also, because of the public terminals, you can play those for free. The corporate grants. Corporate grant is a little questionable. Mostly because you're not installing a bunch of cards in this deck. Like, you're not installing cards every turn, and you're certainly not installing cards on the corpse turn. So I think you remove the Q coherence chips, you remove the corporate grants, you put something else in, anything that synergizes with this. You also don't need the Dr. Lovegood. Remove the Dr. Lovegood because Louis Gilherm, you don't have to trigger him. I absolutely love what this guy did. He did not play the Louis Gilherm until he started doing the Fisk nonsense. And that's why you don't need Dr. Lovegood, because the downside, of course, to Louis is that he loses you 1 credit a turn. But if you wait until you start fisking, you should have the money at that point that losing a credit a turn isn't a big deal. And if you blank him, you lose the effect anyway, if you blank him with Dr. Lovegood. And if you really can't afford the credit for whatever reason, you just don't pay it, and then Louis just trashes himself. So it's fine. So yeah, you could get 2 more influence. Oh, Lovegood is only 1 influence? You get 1 more influence back by removing Dr. Lovegood, plus 3 Q coherence, 3 corporate grants, so that's 7 more cards that you have a wiggle room in this deck. The hostages. Now, the hostages are weird. Why are the hostages in here? There's 1, 2... I don't see the third one. Wait, there it is. 1, 2, 3. Okay. What does hostage get you? It gets you Dr. Lovegood. It gets you Louis. It gets you Bagat. Is that it? Yeah, I don't know if hostage is needed here. How much influence is Bagat? 4. Yikes. Okay. But even then, do you really want to install Bagat that quickly? Like, is Bagat so... Because I think Bagat is the target, right? Like, I guess you could also hostage for Louis the turn before you start doing the whole Fisk seminar nonsense. But I think you really include the hostage for Bagat. But do you need Bagat that quickly? I think you could probably go down to one or 2 hostages. I don't know if you need all 3. When you put 3 of something in your deck, you're screaming, I need this as soon as possible. And hostages obviously don't do anything on their own. They are extra copies of connections, right? So you can pull a hostage is basically copies 4, 5, and 6 of another connection. So by putting 3 hostages in your deck, you're saying, I really need XYZ connection. Now, it's not Dr. Lovegood, and it certainly isn't Louis Gilherm. So you have to assume it's Bagat. And I don't know if you need Bagat. I think Bagat is just a nice piece to this deck, but I don't think he's mandatory. So in fact, you might even get rid of all of the hostages. Anyway, very interesting deck. Really enjoyed seeing this one. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Okay, I'm back. I can do a proper outro now. But yeah, essentially, all of this was really fun to watch, and or fun to see, even if it maybe wasn't pieced together in the best way possible. Hope you had fun looking at just some random games on Jinteki, and certainly enjoyed having you as an audience while we got to analyze all of this. I hope you have a great whatever time period you have between now and the next time. See you then.